Jacqueline Lee Bouvier was born July 28, 1929, in Southampton, New York. She excelled at most everything she did, including horseback riding, reading, ballet, French, and school in general. When Jackie was 10, her parents divorced. Her mother would later remarry. She went to Vassar College in New York studying history, literature, art, and French. She spent her junior year in Paris and her senior year at George Washington University. In 1951, she became inquiring camera girl for Washington Times-Herald newspaper. For 2 months, she was engaged to a man named John Husted, and then she met JFK, and on September 12, 1953, they married, honeymoon to Mexico. When they returned to Washington, Jackie would have a miscarriage and stillborn before having her first child, Caroline, born in 1957. She was pregnant again during JFK's presidential campaign, so she stayed home and answered more than 100 letters, taped commercials, gave interviews, and wrote a weekly news column called Campaign Wife. JFK won the election, and 2.5 weeks later, JFK Jr. was born. While in the White House, Jackie Kennedy's main focus was preserving and displaying American culture. With the help of the White House Fine Arts Committee she established, she filled these rooms with artifacts of past presidents and representations of American culture. While in the process of restoration, CBS filmed Jackie giving a White House tour with over 8 million viewers.
Mrs. Kennedy, I want to thank you for letting us visit your official home. This is obviously the room from which much of your work on it is directed.
Yes, it's attic and cellar all in one. Since our work started, we've received hundreds of letters every day. This is where we evaluate all the finds, see if we want to keep them, if they fit into our budget.
Those are beautiful wing chairs over there.
They are pretty. They're rather interesting because they're American, as is all the furniture in this room. Made in New England about 160 years ago. Mrs. Eisenhower brought all this superb furniture into this room. We added the wallpaper.
This achievement earned her an honorary Emmy. She was known around the world and beloved by many. She traveled to Paris, Vienna, Greece, Italy, India, and Pakistan with her husband. In France, JFK referred to himself as the man who accompanied Jacqueline Kennedy to Paris.
I used to worry about going into the White House. It'll be a goldfish bowl, the Secret Service, I'll never see my husband. Then you found out that, it was really the happiest time of my life. It was when we were the closest.
Because she was such a patron of the arts, she often invited writers, artists, scientists, poets, musicians to the White House, something previous First Ladies had never done. In 1963, she gave birth to Patrick Kennedy, but he died 2 days later. On November 22, 1963, in Dallas, Texas, JFK was riding next to Jackie in a car when he was shot and murdered. Her blood-stained pink Chanel suit became a symbol of the murder. She was left a widow at 34. She handled his death with grace and elegance, and became a symbol of strength for the nation. She planned his funeral, and millions of people watched the broadcast. Later, she began work on the JFK Presidential Library and Museum as a memorial. 5 years later, she became Jackie Onassis, marrying Greek shipping magnate Aristotle Onassis, one of the richest men in the world, a longtime friend, and 23 years older than her. He died in 1975 and left her $20 to $26 million. She was struggling with her mental health, and her kids were old enough to be on their own, so she decided to re-enter the workforce. She accepted a job as editor at Viking Press in New York City and later moved to Doubleday as a senior editor. She was successful until May 19, 1994, when she died in her apartment of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma at 64 years old. She now rests in Arlington National Cemetery next to JFK outside Washington, D.C. Jacqueline Lee Bouvier Kennedy Onassis deserves to be on the Hall of Fame because she was incredibly influential in preserving American culture in the White House and in other areas. And she helped the nation through a time of despair. And she was a fashion icon, setting trends for the next 2 decades.
Oh,